Okay, so today we're gonna start our session. Is topic regarding buyer agency transaction. I'm sure you've done this so many times, right? But regarding the buyer agency transaction, there are some details from my aspect I would like to share with you guys. Hopefully this will trigger some thoughts for you to improve your own work during buyer transaction. Okay, so the first thing is that when you're doing a buyer transaction, there are actually people involved. For listing side, there's listings agent and the seller. For the buyer side, there are selling agent, which is the buyer's agent, and the buyer, mortgage agent, lawyers, accountant, inspectors, environmental companies, contractors, architect, designers. This is not only for residential buy and sell, right? So when you're buying for commercial or buying for business or buying for some other things other than residential, you'll be thinking more things, more people to be involved in your case. So let's talk about residential. When you buy something for the buyer, this applies to commercial as well. First step, you would be doing a pre-qualifier buyer. You don't want to take people out without pre-qualify people because you will be end up wasting your time. A lot of people, after you're talking to them, you know they're not ready or they're not even suitable buyer, right? So you're taking them out, wasting your own time. So first thing, you have to pre-qualify them on mortgage. So when you meet with them the first time, first you have to meet them. A lot of people just talk to clients on the phone first time. They never met, they just go out. Make sure first time you meet them in person so you can qualify them. So when you qualify people by doing mortgage, you have to have 2 or 3 mortgage agents' phone number in your phone so you can call them right away so they can talk to your client on the phone for 5 minutes. So after the 5 minutes, you'll be able to know if they're qualified for taking a mortgage. Because a lot of people, they don't even have their source of fund ready. Their money may be sitting in a Chinese bank, right? They can't get the money out. It takes like 3 to 6 months for them to transfer the money. But if the money is in Canada or Hong Kong or somewhere without restriction, then that'll be okay. And also the money cannot be in someone else's account. I have seen people doing that. They tell me, oh, I have money in my account, but when they're applying mortgage, the bank says the money must be in the buyer's account for at least 3 months. And then they tell me, oh, my money is in my husband or my mother's account. That doesn't count. So make sure their money is in their own name. And who is the decision maker? Most times you're not talking to the decision maker. And sometimes you can't even communicate with the decision maker. And that's wasting time too, because it doesn't matter how many houses you show to this buyer. If they're not decision maker, they will tell you, hey, thank you for showing me houses. I'll have to wait for my husband to come to Canada to make a decision, right? A lot of time you see that. But you have to know if they're a decision maker, then you can grab them. But if they're not decision maker, don't waste too much time. You just maintain a good relationship and don't take them out every day to show houses. You're just wasting your time. Sometimes they say, oh, if I see something I like, and then my husband will come. That's a different case, but a lot of cases, they're the same. When the husband comes, the husband will require you to show them 100 houses more, right? So their motivation, you have to make sure when are they need to move in. Are they needing to move in a month, 2 months, or in a year, right? If they want to move out soon, then you can take them out every day to buy a house. But if they say, oh, I'm planning to move in the next 6 to 12 months, then you have your priority. You're not servicing only one client. You have to make your priority to different clients, right? Another thing is, if you could, I would suggest you to sign an agreement with them on the first day you meet. For example, the disclosure of trading agency. That is important. It's something, a proof that they're your client. You have worked for them. And if you could, also sign exclusive buyer's agreement. You can ask them, hey, Mr. Buyer, are you thinking of hiring me as your buyer's agent? Or are you going to hire many agents working for you? And the buyer say, oh, I'm gonna hire you because I like you. And then you ask them to sign exclusive buyer's agreement. Tell them, hey, if you like to hire me, please sign this agreement. This agreement tells me that you're gonna work with me independently, not going to find some other realtor. If they are refused to sign that agreement with you, that means they are using different buyer's agent at the same time. So if you want to work for this client, then you have to compete with other realtors. So you just have to call them every day, send them listings, trying to, make them buy with you. So good luck with that. A lot of people are facing that situation. It's pretty normal with Asian buyers. Okay, so for pre-qualified, there's also how much discount and sold on the market. You have to educate them. Like, for example, the client doesn't know the market. They say, oh, for $1 million house, can I buy it for $500,000, right? A lot of people are like that. And you have to educate them, how much are the sold and discount on the market people are getting, right? If you go to your market, your rebgv.ca, when you log in, there's a stats. And when you go to stats, you can show people how much are discounted on the sold price. Normally, there is about 5%, right? 5 to 3% on sold price. So you have to educate them, in this neighborhood, this many houses sold, and normally how much are people discounting for their sold, right? So people, the buyer you have making offer, are not making some stupid offer that will trigger the seller to be offended, right? If they're offended, they probably won't talk to you again. And also educate on client about market price and city appraisal. A lot of people don't know what city appraisal is. City appraisal is something done last year, not reflecting current market. Okay, people like to see that, hey, I'm buying 10% below the appraisal price. I'm buying 20% below the appraisal price. It's not like that. If you see the appraisal price on a house, it's not current market, it's from last year, okay? So you have to educate them, what is appraisal price from the city? What does it mean? It's not a standard thing to compare the sold price with the city appraisal price, because with a phone call every May, you can change your city appraisal price, right? If you want to sell your house, probably be smart and call the city and tell them, my appraisal price is too low, make it higher. So when people see it, they probably think your house was worth more money, right? Okay, so before putting your buyer in your car, take them for a virtual tour. Everybody has a laptop or a tablet, right? Don't take them out on the first phone call or after first meeting. After the first meeting, pre-qualify them, you take them for a virtual tour. What I mean by virtual tour is that on a computer, you can pull up the neighborhood introduction and tell them, hey, if you want to live in Dunbar, this is what I like, right? The pictures in Dunbar and what's good about it, what's the traffic, what's the shopping mall around here, and how about the schools, right? You introduce them about all those stuff. And then you open up your stats center, and show them the market trend. And so they can see, is the market going up or is the market going down? If the market is sold below or over asking price, right? You can see all that information, show them the market trend in the stats center. Because when you tell them something they may not believe, But if you show them this stat center, they will see from their own aspect. And also show them the listings, right? Active listings. Do you like this house? It's got a red wall and a pointy roof, right? Oh, I like flat roof, right? Now you know they like flat roof, and you show them inside pictures. Oh, do you like this traditional design, or you like this modern design, right? You get to know the clients before you put them in your car, right? Because most times when people taking buyers out, you find out how they like the house, how they not like the house, but that's wasting time. When you do a virtual tour, you know exactly what they like and what they don't like. So you don't waste your time. And you show them sold listings. And they have a realistic idea how much houses are sold, because in Canada, it's very transparent. Everything is recorded in the MLS, sold listing, sold price. In China, I don't think they have that yet. They might, but I don't know if they're that transparent as Canada. Here, it's very transparent. All the sold price are listed on the internet. People can check it out, right? So they're not doing something very, very stupid, giving people an offer that's, you know, they offer people a ridiculous price. So arranging a tour. So when you're doing arranging a tour, actually taking them out for a tour, and you should find out all the property possible they like in the market, and then print them out, arrange them in an order that you would drive like a routine, right? You don't want to drive back and forth. You spend 10 minutes on driving time. You want to spend as little time as possible when you're driving, because driving is, wastes so much time on driving. So try to do that. And then call them one by one. When you're booking a tour, a lot of times you find agents don't pick up their phone very quickly. So when you're doing a tour arrangement, you only spend probably half an hour to an hour to arrange everything. So ignore those ones don't answer, and try to book them later. If you don't have enough listing to show, book them later and put them to the last one you're gonna see. But like I said, you pull out all the listings. For example, you're gonna show 5 houses today, and you just pull out 10, 20 houses. Just call whoever picks up the phone and don't waste your time. And if they don't pick up, show them next time, right? So if your buyer happens to like one of the houses you show the first time, then you just buy one, right? Whoever doesn't pick up their phone loses the opportunity. So same for you guys. Make sure you answer your phone quickly, because someone is trying to book a showing, right? Don't miss that opportunity. And when you try to book a showing, try to call them, text them, and touch base. I know a lot of people are busy, but that's not an excuse. All right, so step number 3 is during the tour. When you're doing a tour, you better study the neighborhood before you take them out. You have to be the neighborhood expert, knowing where the shopping mall, what's the school, why are the school good, and the transits around here. How many buses are going through this route? You have to be the expert, knowing everything about this neighborhood, so the buyer has a confidence and trust in you, right? And make note of each house you see, and communicate with the buyer which part of the house you don't like and which part of the house you like. And how about location? How about the street? Do you like this street? And things the buyers don't even think of, right? If you can't make it to appointment, like you're late on appointment to the next house, make sure you text the agent, ask them to wait for you, or to cancel the appointment early to show your respect. Because when I was doing showing, I've seen agents are so late and they call you after you left the house. That's not professional at all, right? And I even see people don't even show up and never called. So don't be that agent, because you will be end up in a blacklist of some agents. All right. Give the buyer your marketing materials to read. So when you meet the people, you have to bring some marketing materials for your, like your brochure or something for them to keep, not just your business card, because it's very easy to lose and they probably will throw away. So give them something valuable for them to keep with your business card on it, so they won't lose your business card. And communicate with your buyer about houses, right? Update their likes, materials, renovation preference, and things like that. And ask them if there is a house they thought they would like to put an offer. You have to ask them to make an offer. Otherwise, they're gonna see 10 house, 20 house, 30 houses, never end. You gotta communicate them and ask them if there's a house, like show them this house qualifies for all your preferences. Would you like to make an offer on it and see how much we can get for it? You have to make that push, okay? And for you as a buyer's agent, you also have to learn about building materials, quality of finishing, and the price. When you're going through the showing with them, you have to tell them what is a good finishing and how about the building material. Are this house a cheaply built or nicely built, right? You have to learn that to earn their trust. If you don't know anything about house, your product, house are your products to sell, right? If you're selling a cell phone, of course you're gonna know what's the screen made of, what's the system made of, right? When you're selling a house, you know nothing about it. There's no professional in you, right? You have to learn about the house material, quality, and how they're built and stuff like that. Offer presentation. So now your buyer finds a good house they want to buy, and you have to present the offer for your buyer. So before you do that, you have to study the market, do a CMA. We have another video about CMA. You can look on my YouTube channel about the CMA. And your pricing strategy. Are you going to offer them full price? Are you going to offer them low ball, or are you going to offer them 5 times before you take their offer, trying to stretch back and forth? What's your strategy, right? You're going to analyze the market. Is the market hot or the market cold? You know, how long are you going to drag this negotiation? 3 days, a month? Sometimes I see offer going back and forth a month before they get accepted, right? So you have to analyze this. What is the market? Is it fast market or slow market or multiple offer market before you do the pricing strategy? And also the buyer completion date and possession date. Are they matching with the seller's completion and possession date? You have to find out what is the seller's preference too. Because if you offer something the seller like, they may take your offer. In this market, I still see a lot of multiple offer going on the Vancouver West Side. So if you know what the seller wants and trying to offer something the seller want, you may get the offer, right? You may even think of getting rid of financing, inspection, and other subject clauses if your buyers qualify for that. And you make sure before you do a subject to sale, that's different. But a free subject or cash offer, it's very important that you sign a waiver with your client. Sign a waiver and educate them. What does it mean to waive the financing clause or inspection clause? Okay, that's a very important protection for buyer agent. And also your subject opening period. Try to make it long enough for people to make a decision, but don't make it too long for people to take your offer and shop around. Shop it with other buyers and make other buyers buy for even better price than you and sold to other people, right? If you open it too long, then some people may do that. an offer opening period is that you want to keep it, short enough to push people to pressure them to accept your offer. So in a buyer's market, you want to keep it shorter, but in a seller's market, you don't want to keep it too short, but not too long. So you have to find that sweet spot. And also subject open period. This one, if you leave it too long, but the seller probably won't take your offer, right? If you need 3 weeks to get financing done, hey, you better do a pre-qualify or pre-approval on your financing before you make an offer. Otherwise, you're going to lose your offer because you left it 3 weeks. Sometimes the seller only allow 1 week or even 3 days. So whoever offers shorter subject opening period, who can win the offer better, right? Number 5, offer presentation. So a lot of times are by email. In person, I would prefer to present in person unless the seller agent provides a letter saying we do not allow people to present offer in person, only by email. In person, you will have a lot of opportunity to negotiate, to show your interest, to even change your terms and stuff during the offer negotiation, right? So, but by email, it's very hard to say. It's, by email, you don't know what's going on behind the screen, right? So letter for owner occupy. And that works for Caucasian sellers. 95% doesn't work on Chinese sellers. So what you do is you write an offer with a letter, very touching letter. You probably find somebody who can write for you, and send it to the seller. When seller reads it, oh, this buyer is gonna love my house, again, take care of it like their baby and stuff like that, because sellers are most times emotional attached to their house. They're gonna sell to somebody who's gonna take care of it, right? So sometimes if you send a letter with it, and that helps with your offer too, especially during a multiple offer. Sometimes multiple offer may not sell to the best price. They may sell to whoever is gonna take care of the house, or whoever has the best date, suitable date for the sellers, right? For multiple offer, it's very important that you keep your best price. Always tell your buyer to offer your best possible price. Do not regret after the offer is sold, right? Every time I heard people telling me, oh, my buyer says they so regretted they can add another $10,000, $20,000. Don't offer a regret price, right? And less subject, the better. Also sign the buyer's waiver consent. Always protect yourself by signing a waiver, okay? Number 6, closing. Financing. Make sure your financing is ready. I've seen so many times that people are not even ready when they're completing a deal. Their financing is still in trouble. Their money is still stuck in China and stuff like that, right? Make sure your money is ready. And lawyer, make sure you send lawyer the contract 2 weeks before completion. Don't send them too late, because lawyers normally needs 2 weeks to finish all the paperwork. Okay, so if you send them only for a week before completion, they may charge you a rush fee, and that's quite expensive. So try to send them early as possible. And also deficiency walkthrough. Try to do that before 1 week before closing. So if you find out something the seller did not fix, they still have time to fix it. If you do the walkthrough like 1 day before closing, nobody has time to fix it, right? Do the walkthrough at least a week before people complete. And also, you have to help your buyer to change their address. Tell them, hey, you got to change your address, right? Open a new account, BC Hydro, for the species, stuff like that. This is all called customer service. The better service you give them, the better opportunity they will give you another referral. Their friend, the more they like you, they will give you more referral business. And fund ready for closing. Again, money ready, sitting in the bank. Again and again, money, most important. Set in the bank, wait for closing. Don't put it in some stupid mutual fund, and because those will take you at least 3 days for you to get the money back. I've seen people, oh, my money is sitting in my bank. Yeah, it's in the mutual fund. It's not liquid. You have to sell them and take them out. You transfer to your own bank and make bank drafts. That takes 3 days, okay? And that's gonna miss your closing date. So make sure their money is sitting in their checking account. Step 7, possession. When you take over the keys, make sure you show the client everything, all the amenities, where the gym, where the party room, where the parking stalls, lockers, where do they throw the garbage, and even where are the gas shut-off and the water shut-offs are, right? People don't know, you have to teach them. And maybe bring them a nice gift. And also give them something to keep with your phone number on it. Make sure they remember you, your service, right? And also follow up after 7 days and see them, ask them how they're doing, how do they like their new home, right? And then after that, you should call them at least 4 times a year, right? Otherwise, they're gonna forget you. So there's something to look out for. When you are going to the property and you feel the size of the property is different than what they said in their feature sheet, you probably will have the buyer measure the house, right? If they think, oh, this bedroom may not be able to fit my furnitures, or this living room may not be able to fit my piano, right? Make sure you bring a measurement tool with you so you can measure the floor right away when your client has some question about the floor size. And title, make sure the title has no easement or right of way or lanes will affect the use of your client. For example, you have a right of way in your backyard for a species right of way, and your buyer says, I'm gonna dig a swimming pool in my backyard. And you know right away, you're not gonna do that. You're gonna break the gas pipe, right? You cannot put a swimming pool in your backyard because there's a right of way. So you gotta know what are easements, what are right of ways, what are the lanes. You have to learn how to read the title. If you don't, send it to your lawyer, and lawyer will explain to you what they mean. Sometimes they charge a fee, sometimes they don't, depending on which lawyer you go to. And also strata document. Always send the strata document to your buyer, ask them to read it, and ask their lawyer to read it. Well, you have to help them read it too, because if you see something they don't see, you have to disclose to them. Otherwise, it'll become your responsibility, your liability. If you see that they have a special levy coming up, you didn't tell them, and you didn't put it in your contract, then later on when the buyer loses money, they're gonna come back and sue you, and you probably have to end up paying for that special levy for them. So make sure you read the strata documents. And also FINTRAC. If the check you got from your buyer or the bank draft or certified check from third party, make sure you take a copy of their ID, okay? And later on, if you find out the money is coming from a third party and it's not coming from the buyer, right? From the parents or from the husband or from some kind of company, then make sure you FINTRAC the person who provided the fund. Otherwise, this could be a money laundering case. And mortgage. Fund must be in the buyer's account more than 30 days for some banks. A lot of banks do that, but make sure which bank you're dealing with. And do they have 30 or 90 days? Sometimes bank have 90 days restriction. The money must be in their bank for 90 days. So make sure the rules for different banks, okay? And stats of the buyer and the seller. Make sure you know if they're non-tax resident or they're tax resident or they're even foreigner, right? If the seller are foreigner or non-tax resident, make sure you're something saying in your contract about speculation tax empty home tax and stuff like that, protecting your buyer, and make sure they pay all the taxes. Their lawyer should do that. It's not your job, but it's their lawyer's job. And also the PDS. PDS is something that they have to disclose if there is a latent defect. A latent defect is not something you can see with your eyes. It's something when you move in, you may be able to find out later on. And for example, a renovation without permit, it's a latent defect, right? You don't see that, but you can find out from the city hall. The only way is to find out from the city hall if you have the seller's permission to access their building plan, right? So if you ask them if there's a renovation done without permit in the house, if you think they're hiding something, you have to get the seller's permission to access the building plan, check on it. Because there was a case, a dentist was selling a house in West Vancouver. And then they told the people, oh, we didn't do any renovation on our own. We did everything under the permit. So the buyer bought the house and then later on found out the house was done without permit, renovation without permit. They got a complaint from the neighbor. So the city went there and did inspection. And then the city ordered the buyer to tear down everything and restore the house to its original condition. So the buyer lost a lot of money because they trusted the word from a dentist, right? So never trust people. The buyer has to do their own due diligence for your buyer. So, they're gonna sue the buyer, but their lawyer's gonna sue whoever's involved. Sue buyer's agent, sue the seller, sue the seller's agent, everybody. And make sure if the house is pre-1970, make sure you obtain a oil tank certificate, scanning certificate. See if there's a oil tank in there. Even though you have an oil tank certificate, you still have to keep a oil tank clause survive of the contract after completion. Because oil tank scanning is not 100% guaranteed. So when you're gonna build a new house and you start digging and you find out, oh, there's an oil tank under a concrete slab where people cannot scan, right? And then you'll end up losing $20,000 for removing the oil tank and probably $200,000 removing contaminated soil. So you have to have oil tank clause survive of the contract completion. And the PLA, if your buyer sometimes have a PLA, which is power of attorney, means authorization for third party to act on the principal, the main buyer. So if you have a PLA, make sure what kind of PLA is it? Is it enduring PLA or is it a general PLA? And make sure the effective date is still valid. And also make sure the content. What is the PLA about? Is the PLA about this guy can make a decision on cleaning my house or selling my house? So make sure you read the PLA before you think it's a valid PLA, right? And enduring PLA means effect even the people who issued PLA lost mental capacity, become insane or become paralyzed or in hospital, cannot talk. A general PLA is a person in good health and good mental health. Okay, so there are two different PLAs. So you have to make sure what kind of PLA you're getting. Is the person die? The PLA die with it? Identify the person if that person is alive. Okay, if the person's dead, the PLA dies with it. Your PLA will be a piece of paper. So make sure the person is still alive. Okay, if PLA done outside of Canada, they will need a local endorsement. Means they have to go to notary, notarize their PLA is valid for, it's a real PLA. So they have to get an endorsement. Disclosure of interest in trade. If you're buying for something yourself, your wife, your son, your father, your relative, arm's length, right? Relative, you have to disclose that. Even you're buying for your same brokerage agent, right? Your company associate, or buying for your boss. their spouse, you had to disclose that. You had to disclose everything that's relating, gonna affect decision of the seller. And other disclosures, like if you're in a team, you have to do a team disclosure, team member disclosure, right? So make sure you have that before the offer is signed. So any disclosure, like privacy consent or disclosure of trading agency, any disclosure must be done before you enter a contract. That's including MLS contract or purchase agreement, okay? Situations about upsizing, downsizing, subject to sale, development, or tenanted property, or seller rent back. So those situations you have to be careful with. So if it's upsizing or downsizing when you're buying for your client, make sure there's 2-3 days between the completion and possession date, not one day after another, because they're upsizing or downsizing, right? They need time to move. So when they sell their property, they have to get money to pay for what they bought. So when you sell the property and first day, day one, like say for January 1st, the sell part complete, they get their money. And then the second day, January 2nd, the purchase day complete, okay? When you're buying a purchase, do not make it the same day. Do not make selling and purchasing the same day completion. You're gonna be stuck, okay? And then January 3rd would be your possession day for your purchasing part. Okay, you have to take possession the next day to move in. And then the 3rd and the 4th are the moving and cleaning for your house, the house you're selling. The house you're selling, you have to move out and clean the house. And then day 4, day 5, you give the keys to the buyer who bought your house, who bought the selling possession date, okay? So you have to arrange the date in this order. Otherwise, you're gonna be screwed up. So when you're selling a house, make sure there are at least 3 days to 4 days in between when you're selling the house. When you're buying the house, make sure the possession day and completion day are after the selling part, not before, because you don't even have the money to complete, right? You have to complete your selling before you're purchasing. So make sure you have the date in this order. And subject to sell. A lot of cases right now, subject to sell, right? Make sure you have a subject to sell clause with a 72-hour or 48-hour clause, so the seller would give you that offer. Otherwise, nobody's gonna agree. Nobody's gonna tie up for a month waiting for you to sell. So they must have a 72 or 48-hour clause, which means they can accept any offer, a better offer, and they have to let you know you have the 72-hour time to make a decision if you're gonna remove the subject and purchase it. If you do not remove your subject within 72 hours, they will sell the house to another party. So that's for subject to sell. For development is totally different case. Development is for people who are gonna tear down the house, so they don't really care about the house. Everybody has to move out, right? Unless there's a tenanted or seller have to stay in it. So the developers more care about the environmental. Is their oil tank, is the soil contaminated? Is there a phase 1 environmental report? So you will have to have a feasibility study clause or a due diligence clause in your contract where the developer has to satisfy all the conditions within the feasibility study clause. So make sure they can have enough time to go to the city to talk to their designer or architect about the property, right? So that's for developer. And tenanted property, make sure you obtain a lease agreement. If you don't have a lease agreement, you have no idea what kind of a lease they have. Are they fixed term tenant or are they month-to-month tenant? You don't know. And also, if you want a vacant possession, you have to find out when their lease ends. If they're month-to-month, you have to give them full 2 calendar months notice. And if they're fixed, you have to wait until their lease expires, right? And if you're going to take over the tenant, where's the deposit? How much was it? And are the seller going to transfer your deposit after they sold the house? Make sure they transfer the deposit. Otherwise, you'll be owing the tenant a half-month deposit, and you don't even know how much, right? So make sure you get the agreement and find out how much deposit they're owing to the tenant. And if you're doing a vacant position, make sure the buyer has to send the notice to vacate to the seller as soon as possible, because it takes 2 full calendar months for the tenant to move out. So make sure you send out that notice early as possible. When you remove the subject, send it right away. Okay. Oh yeah, there's that one thing about sending notice, because if they don't send the notice to the tenant in person, it doesn't affect right away. So when you're calculating the date, normally if they don't see the tenant, they're gonna put it in their mailbox and takes effect 3 days. So you have to add 4 days when you send a notice. If you send the notice in January 1st, the notice won't be effective until January 4th or even 5th, depending on different method the seller send the notice to the tenant. So you have to make sure and ask the seller's agent, how did you notice this tenant? So you can calculate the date for completion, right? So make sure you ask for that. And seller rent back. Seller rent back is like signing a new month-to-month lease agreement with the tenant. A month-to-month, you have to say is whether it's free or paid, how much a month, and who's paying the utilities, and when does it expire, right? So you have to talk to the seller who wants the rent back and negotiate it after the deal is subject removed. So you have to negotiate that, or even before the subject removed. This may be a deal killer for you. If you remove the subject, you have to take it, right? And the seller cannot, if they cannot move, then you have to go through tenancy branch to make the seller move. So that's gonna take anywhere from 3 to 6 months to do that. You don't want dealing with tenancy branch. It's kind of headache, okay? So that is everything for the tenancy part. And we're gonna talk about FINTRAC. FINTRAC, let's talk about FINTRAC. I have talked about FINTRAC for many times, and there is even a video about the FINTRAC. So we're gonna talk about FINTRAC very quickly. This won't take long, probably 5 minutes. I'm gonna quickly go through the FINTRAC again. So why are we doing this? Because the Canadian government FINTRAC department requires everybody who's in the real estate industry keep a record of the fund where money coming from. Okay, so there's question. So even on the offer, we have vacant possession clause, and we still need to deliver notice to the tenant as the buyer's agent. The answer is yes. So normally, when you have a clause to vacate the tenant, the rule is that the seller has to receive a notice from the buyer before they can send a notice to the tenant to move out. So the buyer's agent must send a notice after subject removed to the seller's agent, ask them to give the tenant a notice to move out. That is the rule. If they do not receive buyer's notice, they cannot send a notice to the tenant. That is the rule. Okay, very good question. Okay, let's go back to the FINTRAC. So your client may end up being investigated if they do not provide you the document and you do not do your job. And you may be getting penalties or lose license or go to jail if you're involved in a money laundering case. So there is a website. If you Google FINTRAC, you can see government information on FINTRAC website. Okay, this is criminal penalties may include the following. So failure to report suspicious transaction is up to $2 million and $5 imprisoned. Failure to report a large cash transaction, we don't take cash, by the way, okay, or an electronic fund transfer, up to $500,000 penalty, right? First offense. First time, you're gonna pay $500,000 and $1 million for subsequent offense. Second time would be $1 million, okay? Failure to meet record keeping requirement, which means your FINTRAC form. If you don't do your FINTRAC form properly, you may end up paying $500,000 or 5 years in prison. Okay, that's why I after you every day, every time for your FINTRAC. Failure to provide assistance for or providing information during compliance examination means they're gonna investigate in your client, and if you don't help, you'll be end up $500,000 penalty and 5 years in prison. And disclosing the fact that suspicious transaction report was made or disclosing the content of such report with the intent to prejudice a criminal investigation is up to 2 years in prison. What does it mean is that, for example, the FINTRAC is gonna go after your client, and you call your client, say, hey, Ron, they're after you, and you will be end up in prison for 2 years. Don't do that, okay? When do you need to fill in a FINTRAC? This is by the FINTRAC department. They're saying the first time you take out buyer for a tour, you had to do a FINTRAC, and you had to do another FINTRAC when they're writing offer, but 99% people are not doing that. And listing agent signing listing agreement. So listing agent only have to do FINTRAC once they sign the agreement. I'm not sure the first one, the rule, probably they wanna do like, you know, people take you out one time and they take other people out, you know, I don't know. Anyways, that's the rule from the FINTRAC department. Okay, verification. You have to have their valid government photo ID, their home address, and their principal of their business or occupation. It cannot be no job, retired, or housewife. If they're retired, you can say a retired car sales manager, or you can say never worked, money coming from husband, or a student, money from parents, right? Client must physically present. You have to see them face to face when you're verifying client. If you never seen them face to face, then they have to be verified in their local government notary, be verified. So if you have a client you never met, how do you prove what they say they are, right? Who they say they are. So they have to be notarized in their local notary. In China, lawyer, you can find a BC licensed lawyer to do a FINTRAC for them, or they have to go to a local notary to do a FINTRAC for them. For a lot of government, for like a US government or some other country government, they all go to notary for notarize things. So you have to notarize their company if they're purchasing with a company, and they have to notarize with their individual as well. So make sure if you never met them, get their notification. Otherwise, you have a very, very big risk of getting this client, right? You don't know where the money is coming from. Okay, so this is for unrepresented party. When you're a listing agent or when you're a buyer agent, the seller and the buyer may not have an agent representing them. So you have to fill in this part, measurement taken a certain identity, right? You have to ask them for the same thing, FINTRAC your buyer and seller, even though they have no agent, then you have to FINTRAC them. Okay, third party, if they're buying for someone else, like they have a PLA or the children is buying for their parents, right? So you have to fill in the third party information. Are they buying for someone else? You have to ask. And for client's risk, make sure you select this part, Canadian resident, high crime area, no other risk factors if they have really no other risk factors, because everywhere in Greater Vancouver is considered high crime area. There's no safe area in Greater Vancouver. Okay. And also in China, in India, anywhere that happened to have a money laundering case is high crime area if they have anything that's high crime area. So make sure you're doing that. Okay. Okay, so hold on, I'm trying. Okay, so anyways. Okay, so deposit. When you receive a deposit, doesn't matter you're a listing agent or you're the buyer's agent, you have to fill in a receipt of fund record. You have to fill in this record. This record must have this information: source of income, who and where it was from, purpose of the money was paid for, deposit for purchase, relationship to the person who provided the money, and name, account number, account type, where the money came from. Sometimes you see the client on the contract is person A, but the deposit is from person B or company. Then you have to FINTRAC that person or that company, because this may be a money laundering if the company is providing the fund without any loan agreement or anything. And a lot of people, for example, a gangster asked the student to buy a property for them, right? The money is coming from a gangster. And then it's a student who's on title to buy the house, right? So you got to make sure where the money coming from and FINTRAC that person. That is the main purpose of this FINTRAC, the whole thing, okay? And do not take cash. Don't take cash for deposit. If CPS is a person name, but the fund is coming from company, this is illegal unless they have a loan agreement. If money comes from a friend or non-direct family member, you need a loan agreement, or you have to tell them, you have to report them if they don't provide a loan agreement, because this is a suspicious transaction, right? So the money coming from nowhere, you don't know where they're coming from. So that is everything. The deposit, very important. Make sure you get account name, account number, account type for the deposit you receive. This is a government rule. Everybody have to obey it, okay? So if you have any question, you're welcome to send it in the chat. I can answer all your questions. If we don't have any more questions, then that will be everything for today. Okay, I guess there's no more question. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.